I'm Trevor Spath. I'm a sophomore at Waverly High School and an FFA member, and I'm interviewing Dave from West Blue Farms. First off, could you share a little bit of background about your operation?
Well, Deb and I, we were married in 1980, and I actually started farming a couple years before that, so we've been at it a while. We have a certified organic operation with all of our crops, which we grow corn, beans, wheat, oats, and alfalfa. We haven't certified any of our livestock, which we have a cow-calf operation, about 30-40 head, and we raise about 4,000 broiler chickens and just started raising a few hogs, and we direct market all of our livestock from us direct to the consumer. The crop ground consists of around 800 acres, pretty diverse rotation, and that's kind of the gist of the operation.
How important is biodiversity to your operation?
Yeah, just our crop rotation alone creates a lot of diversity on the farm compared to just the alternating corn and soybeans. And then with the livestock and the pasture, we've used it. Last 4 years now, we've always used rotational grazing. Now we've gone to kind of a high density stock grazing or mob grazing. So the cattle will be on one piece of the pasture for maybe a half a day or a day, and then they're moved. And so that piece of ground can rest for 30 to 90 days before we come back. So it gives a chance for, wildlife to reproduce and things like that.
Do you do all of the work yourself, or do you hire help?
And like I said earlier, about 5 years ago, Steve and Shelly Lorenz joined our operation, and they came from Minnesota. They had worked, Steve grew up on a farm, but he worked as a mechanic for about 15 years, and they went through a program called Farm Beginnings through the Land Stewardship Project. And after they did that, they decided they wanted to get back on a farm and wanted to move to southeast Nebraska or northwest Missouri was kind of their preferred location. And long story short, we made a connection and they moved down here and bought a piece of ground that my parents still own, so they had their home base. And then the plan was that Steve would work for me for a few years just on salary, and he could use our machinery to farm the ground that he had bought from my parents. And then he'd start farming all the rented ground that we had, and we'd kind of be 50-50 for a while. And then in about 10 years from the time he came, then he'd take over all the crop ground. Well, about 3 years into that, they had twin girls, so that kind of changed Shelly's somewhat her ability to work off the farm or just the costs of it. And so we kind of looked at the situation and we said, hey, maybe they can take over the crop side of the operation, generate more income, so Steve would be the only one having to work, and Shelly could stay home with the girls. And it kind of worked for Deb and I too. We were able to slow down a little bit and not have the day-to-day responsibility of running the crop side of the operation, and that's worked out pretty good. And we started that when I was 52, which is maybe a little bit early to start transitioning out of farming, but it's worked out pretty good. And
will you expand the future management plans of your farm?
we're kind of stepping out right now a little bit as far as the crop production goes. We've turned that over to the next generation, so to speak, and still more in a mentoring role and just assisting in that transition right now. But at some point we'll, fully step away from that. We'll probably maintain our livestock operation for quite a few years yet, and who knows, maybe our grandkids will be interested at some point, and maybe they'll take over that part of it. And it's hard to predict the future. You kind of, as 20 years ago, I thought, well, maybe one of my kids would take over the farm, and well, they went different directions, which is fine. And so now we've got another family that's involved in it, and whether their kids get involved or not, maybe maybe my grandkids or somebody comes back into it, or maybe somebody totally new, maybe one of the, people that we hire during the summer times, maybe they, start to fit in. And so who knows what'll happen down the road.
What opportunities for farms like yours do you see arising in the future?
Oh, I think there's great opportunities for organic farming and direct marketing. It's the consumers are really driving that because they're becoming more involved in wanting to know what's in their food. There'll be more direct marketing of fruits and vegetables and meat, just because that's what people are demanding and they're willing to pay for it. They liked having that connection with the farmer, being able to go out on the farms and see where their food's grown at. And I think that'll be a big plus. Fuel's getting so high, it really doesn't make sense to be bringing all your food from, your fruits and vegetables from California 12 months out of the year when we can grow it right here for 6 or 8 months out of the year. And